Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei become a master of Succubus part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. Let's start this video. Issei Hyoudou, a boy with chocolate brown hair and eyes, groaned as he leaned into a half-sitting position in bed. He promptly slammed down his rather annoying alarm, which was currently blaring to get him up to go to school. Issei groaned as he got up because he was still sore and bruised on his body from the beating he got from the kendo club. He and his two friends, Mitsuda and Motohama, were caught peeping, although Issei got the brunt of it as they tripped him to let them escape, although they couldn't get far. Issei took a quick shower before donning the uniform for Kuo Academy, the academy with all the beautiful women any man could ever want. He quickly went down the stairs and sat down for breakfast. "Hey son, how's school going?" Issei's father asked, looking up from his newspaper. "It's going fine dad," Issei replied before taking a bite from his breakfast. "Any girls catch your eye?" Issei's dad asked with a perverted grin which his son mirrored. "You don't know the half of it," Issei replied. "Boys, I will have no jokes or talks of those kinds in my house," Issei's mother said, popping her head out of the kitchen, a frying pan being wielded with deadly efficiency and poised to strike if there was more of such talk. "Boys will be boys," Issei's father said with a calm grin, although he and Issei have both felt the wrath of Ms. Hyoudou and her frying pan. "Well dad and mom, I got to go to school, I will see you later," Issei said after finishing his breakfast before heading to school. Little did Issei know a pair of amber eyes was watching him with great interest and a lustful glint. As Issei arrived at school, he saw his fellow perverts both rubbing their bruises, although Issei took the brunt of the beating. "So you guys are still sore from yesterday?" Issei asked, to which his friend sagely nodded. "But that won't stop us from peeping today," Mitsuda said with determination. "Indeed, we must continue our righteous crusade," Motohama agreed, pushing up his glasses. Issei said in agreement. The three perverts strolled into school, death stares already being sent at them from the kendo club. Little did Issei know another person was watching him, Ria's Gremory, the top beauty of the school, also the girl the perverted trio want to peep on, but are never able to. "Something catches your eye, Ria's." Her friend and the second most popular beauty in Kuo Academy, Akeno Himejima. "That boy," she spoke. Issei Hyoudou, a second-year student, part of the infamous perverted trio and one who is hated by the kendo club. "I heard they got beaten up yesterday," Akeno informed her. Ria spoke contemplatively. "Send Kaneko to keep an eye on him. I believe he has sacred gear." Rias informed Akeno, who nodded in response before leaving to carry out her king's orders. The day passed with Issei and his buddies peeping on the kendo club again. The fools got beaten again, clearly not learning their lesson. Issei walked home all the while rubbing his bruises from the wooden swords the kendo club used on him. He did sacrificial protection to protect his crown jewels, the rest of his body suffering. However, it was a worthy sacrifice as Mitsuda and Motohama didn't protect their jewels and now were crying as they limped home. Issei crossed a bridge he usually went by on his way home. It was kind of weird that his walk home was empty in terms of people, but it didn't matter, it just meant Issei got home quicker. As Issei got home, he quickly had lunch before going to his room to rest from the beating he got. Issei just blankly stared at his ceiling before his eyes were lulled into a gentle sleep, his body resting itself from the wounds it received. A slight creaking sound was heard indicating someone was in the room, however the noise had reached Issei's ears and his eyes slowly began to open. He blinked a few times for his eyes to adjust to the light in the room. His room was only illuminated by his bedside lamp. However, after Issei's eyes adjusted, he found an incredibly beautiful woman currently sitting on top of him. The woman was scantily clad, wearing a black bikini bra and a black G-string with a gold trim. She also wore long leather stockings that reached up her thighs. It too had a gold trim. However, most surprising of all was that the woman had two large black bat wings jutting out of her back, while a black tail with an arrowhead tip swished behind her. The woman by far was the most beautiful person Issei had ever seen. Her eyes were a powerful, alluring amber, while she had blonde hair cascading behind her with pink highlights, giving her an exotic look. Her skin was a beautiful snow white, while her body was curvaceous, and she had large breasts bigger than Ria's and Akeno's, which seemed to defy gravity, while her ass appeared plump and large. Issei thought to himself, this must be a dream, not that he really minded. Although he wondered when he developed a fetish for bat wings and tails. The woman's hands reached out and grabbed Issei by his cheeks before leaning down and placing her soft pink lips to his own. The kiss sent an electric jolt of pleasure through Issei, and the feeling of the kiss was too real to be a dream. Her lips were soft and tasted sweet to Issei. She broke the kiss after a few seconds. "This has to be a dream," Issei muttered to himself, not believing such a woman would be with him. "Oh, I assure Issei this is no dream," the woman spoke, her voice seductive and mature. Issei's eyes widened. This confirmed it was not a dream. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Issei suddenly bombarded, however she shushed him by placing her finger to his lip, immediately quieting down the boy. Issei Hyoudou, I am sure you have loads of questions, but you know what they say, actions speak louder than words. The woman spoke seductively before leaning in to kiss Issei on the lips again. However, this time Issei got a surprise as the woman stuck her tongue into his mouth, drawing a muffled moan from Issei as her tongue began exploring his mouth. Her lips all of a sudden tasted sweeter, more like strawberries. Issei's tongues tried to keep up with hers, however all that occurred was that she led him in a passionate dance. Issei also began to notice the faint aroma that permeated from the woman. It was faint but powerful and intoxicating. As they continued to kiss, the woman intensified the kiss as if she was trying to suck the air out of Issei's lung. Issei's hands began to move on instinct, grasping her ass, his fingers sinking into the soft flesh. The woman moaned hotly into the kiss, much to Issei's pleasure, and his arousal, which was already building, was now ever present. The woman suddenly broke the kiss, her eyes locking with Issei's. Issei, before we continue I think I should explain a few things. Do you know what I am? Her tone changed from seductive to serious. Issei really didn't care what she was, rather that he really wanted to have sex with this woman and her. They really were something special. The woman picked up on his confused expression and spoke again. I am a succubus. Issei's eyes widened. Did this woman just say she was a she-demon who could kill men through sex? How did he know this? Simple. Issei and his compatriots had an argument involving succubus, and he has looked them up since then. A demon that can kill men through sex. Issei spoke incredulously, to which the woman nodded. That stuff doesn't exist. Issei attempted to speak, but his jaw hit the floor when he finally took in the sight of her bat wings and tails. No way. Issei spoke in a mixture of trepidation and anticipation. I am surprised you didn't realize in the first place. The woman giggled. I guess you were too distracted staring at these, she teased, pressing her breasts closer to Issei's face, who blushed in response. So what brings a succubus here? Issei asks curiously. Simple, I want a contract, she said to Issei calmly. And what do I get out of this contract? Issei said, although we obviously know what he wanted and where his eyes were staring weren't helping. You become my master and we have to have sex at least once a day so I can be sated, she began explaining. I also can aid in whichever goals you want, and I will endeavor my hardest to achieve my master's desire, she said, putting emphasis on master. Not that I really mind becoming your master. Why me? Issei asked. Yes, I know canon. Issei wouldn't care why and just want to get laid, but I can't see it happening in this situation. You have a dragon's sacred gear inside you, a powerful one. The woman explained. She then continued to explain what sacred gears were. And since you have a dragon, your offspring will be powerful, and therefore I can birth a powerful heir, as she explained. Your royalty. Issei spoke in shock, to which the woman nodded. Yes, I am Lilith, queen of the succubus. The woman finally introduced herself. I am going to be the queen of the succubus. Issei spoke in shock, which made the queen giggle. She had slept with many men before, but the one in front of her was certainly interesting. Yes, you are, but get ready, I am going to milk you dry, she warned him before she began unzipping Issei's pants, and with one fell swoop, ripped off both of his pants and underwear, leaving his erection standing. She then removed Issei's shirt, leaving him in his birthday suit. You know, Issei, women say they hate perverted men like you, but I love them, she complimented him with a seductive grin which made Issei blush. She then moved down towards Issei's crotch, her head right in front of his arousal, her warm breath making it twitch slightly. She opened her mouth to allow saliva to slowly drip onto Issei's length, Issei watching intently before she in one fell swoop swallowed his length, making it hit the back of her throat. Issei groaned out in pleasure at the sudden deep throat, but Issei was already feeling light-headed from the pleasure. Her mouth was extremely hot and wet, making the blowjob even better. She then began moving up and down, her luscious lips wrapped around his length, taking it all without a problem, her tone massaging his sensitive tip as she sucked up and down his length. Lilith. Issei groaned out in ecstasy. She then began increasing her pace, going up and down like a pump, coating his whole length in saliva and the hot orifice of her mouth. Issei then placed his hand on her head and began pushing her down even deeper, making his 8-inch length go further into her mouth and even slightly down her throat. All the while moaning her name. After a minute or so, Issei's length twitched, indicating he was about to dot. Lilith then pulled her head off Issei's length before stroking his length while licking the tip of his cock, edging him closer and closer to him. For me, Issei, I want it hot in my mouth. She spoke dirtily, and that's what sealed it for Issei. He bucked his hips into her mouth before exploding directly into her mouth. Lilith wrapped her lips around and his length and began sucking like a vacuum, making sure to drag out every drop. Crap. Issei groaned, his eyes rolling into the back of his head as he read for the first time. Issei's length plopped out of Lilith's mouth as he finished. Issei was panting heavily at his first intensity. However, he wanted more, and within seconds, his cock rose back to full height, which drew a smile from the lusty succubus. Her stamina is impressive, she complimented before she straddled Issei's lap, pulling aside her G-string to expose her fully shaved pink lower lips. Ready for the best part? She asked with a smile, to which Issei nodded vigorously before Lilith slowly lowered herself onto Issei's length. Issei moaned out in ecstasy as he felt her lower herself onto his length. Her mouth was hot because her vulva was like a furnace in comparison. She was also extremely wet. "You're so hot." Issei groaned out, and he felt his balls churning as he was about to, and Lilith had barely put half of him inside her. "I am going to," Issei warned her as she continued lowering herself onto his length, but as soon as Issei's length was fully inside her, with his tip even pressing against her cervix, earning a moan of pleasure from the succubus. "Lilith!" Issei shouted before he climaxed, his white semen spluttering inside of her. Lilith threw her head back and moaned, her breasts pushed outwards towards Issei. "You're so much inside of me." She moaned as Issei continued. All of a sudden Issei felt her hips move a little, causing her vaginal muscles to massage Issei in all the right places, and right before Issei knew it, he was again, his hips pushing upward, wanting more of this pleasure. His eyes rolled into the back of his head, and Issei was panting and began feeling lightheaded. Issei finally finished and was currently panting heavily with his breathing ragged, a little drool escaping his mouth, his mind barely there. He then felt her lips on his and Issei tried to move her tongue in sync with hers, but was unable to. He was still recovering. She broke the kiss after a few seconds and locked eyes with Issei. "Issei, are you okay?" She asked, a slight hint of concern in her voice. He barely managed to nod. Lilith then leaned forwards, removing her bikini top and throwing it off to the side, exposing her beautiful and perfectly shaped pink nipples and areola. She then gently guided Issei's mouth to her right nipple. "Suck my breast, Issei," she commanded, Issei barely registering her words, then wrapped his lips around her nipple and began sucking. Lilith moaned out in pleasure, and Issei continued to suck like a baby, before his left hand began groping her left breast, his fingers sinking to the soft flesh of her breast. Issei continued sucking for a minute or so before all of a sudden a warm liquid filled his mouth, breast milk. Issei realized and began sucking harder. It tasted sweet, nice and above all refreshing. Lilith moaned loudly as Issei began sucking out her breast milk. Within seconds Issei felt his body warm up, his length back to full attention and ready for more. Issei parted from her breast, which had a little bit of white liquid on it. "Was that breast milk?" Issei asked, wanting to be sure. "Yes, although succubus breast milk is more for refreshing our prey," she informed Issei. "Now come on, Issei, I am not yet satisfied," she said as she began riding Issei. Issei and Lilith both moaned out, while Issei's hands reached out and grabbed her soft plump ass, his fingers sinking in a little. He used those hands to help slam Lilith down onto his length, making the succubus moan out. "Yes. Just like that." Lilith moaned out encouragingly. Lilith was practically impaling herself on Issei's cock, her breasts bouncing as she did, with Issei's eyes watching with great joy as the succubus bounced on him. Issei then began feeling Lilith's insides tighten around his length even more, creating a strong vice which made Issei grit his teeth from the pleasure. "Lilith, you are so tight," Issei said through his gritted teeth as his hands began gripping Lilith's more forcefully. "Master? Your servant, I want your hot in me." Lilith moaned out slutty as she began increasing her pace, the wet slap of their flesh connecting reverberating through the room. Issei was soon at his limit, and Lilith knew it. She tightened up even more, and with one more thrust, rammed his cock as deep as she could, before Issei came harder than before, and more than before. As Issei rode his, Lilith leaned into the side of his head, next to his ear. "Issei, the night is still young. How about we switch positions?" Lilith asked before Issei continued. "The best night of his life." Issei eventually passed out from the sheer amount of hex he was having. No man could hope to keep up with a succubus no less than Queen of the Succubus. Issei found himself in a torrent of fire before the fire suddenly extinguished and a large red dragon appeared, his green eyes analyzing Issei. "So you are my host?" The dragon spoke powerfully. "You must be my dragon," Issei replied. "Indeed I am the Welsh Dragon Emperor." The dragon, now known as Drake, spoke powerfully. A few moments passed before Drake began laughing. "What's so funny, Drake?" Issei asked. "I have never had a host who awakens me, and after sleeping with a succubus." The dragon laughed in amusement. "The succubus is here," Lilith suddenly spoke, making Issei and Drake turned around to see the succubus standing there proudly. "Lilith, what are you doing here?" Issei asked. "She is a succubus partner. They can infiltrate one's dream without much effort," Drake informed Issei. "Issei, the moment you wake up tomorrow we are going to have to train you both physically," and Lilith explained. "Wait, why?" Issei asked, unsure. "Fear will make you attract enemies and allies alike, and I want my master to be prepared," she explained, to which Issei nodded. "It seems we have a succubus who has more than hex on her mind," Drake commented with slight amazement. "Oh, be quite horny, dragon." Lilith hushed Drake, which made Issei laugh. Issei Hyoudou, part of the perverted trio, had not come to school in over 2 months. It sparked a storm of rumors. Ria's Gremory was the most interested in Issei's disappearance, and Kaneko's report before his disappearance intrigued her even more. Issei went to his room and fell asleep, and next day she couldn't sense his presence, as if he literally dropped off the face of the earth. Rias decided to ask around hoping for some clues, but she never got a response, not even Mitsuda and Motohama knew. Rias, what are you going to do about your marriage? Akeno asked her king who was sitting in the orc. I don't know. Issei Hyoudou could have provided an answer, but he seemingly disappeared. Rias replied. I heard a new transfer student was coming in today, she's from America. All the guys are getting excited, Akeno informed Rias. A new transfer student? Rias contemplated, wondering if the new transfer student could have supernatural power, despite the chance being low. Issei is back. Mitsuda and Motohama suddenly shouted around the school. Everyone turned to the school gates, even Rias and Akeno. Much to everyone's surprise, Issei strutted into school with confidence and power. His appearance had changed. He was slightly taller. Instead of wearing his red t-shirt, he wore a formal red t-shirt with a designer black jacket and jeans. As Miyama, Caddis and the Kendo club saw Issei, he sent them a wide smile and ran his hand through his hair, making some of the girls blush, although Caddis and Murayama still had a grudge and rested their shinani on their hands in a threatening posture. Rias and Akeno were also detecting power from Issei. It was subtle but powerful, and the most interesting of all, draconic. Ask and you shall receive, Akeno commented with amusement at the convenience of a solution to solve Ria's problem just appeared. However, Issei suddenly stopped and turned around, everyone following his gaze. All the guys' jaw dropped and all the girls blushed in awe. A tall blonde woman with pink highlights and amber eyes, she wore a black miniskirt with a white blouse and jacket, as well as white heels. She too strutted with confidence and power. Akeno and Ria's eyes widened. A succubus? Rias spoke in incredulity. The powerful one. At that, Akeno added her 2 cents. The woman walked forward and wrapped her hand around Issei's neck before drawing him into a kiss. No way. Mitsuda and Motohama spoke in shock and fell to their knees crying. The pervert got a girlfriend? Miyama asked in shock. The apocalypse is upon us, Caddis voiced her thoughts. Rias and Akeno walked out to meet Issei. Issei Hyoudou, we would like to talk to you, Rias Gremory spoke, to which Issei smiled and nodded. Issei was led to the occult research club where he sat down, while Lilith stood behind him as you would expect from a servant. In the club room were Rias, Akeno, Kaneko and Yumi Kiba, who were looking at Issei with a suspicion they didn't know why, but Issei irradiated an aura as if he changed more than one would expect. So Rias, how can I help you? Issei asked, initiating the conversation. Let's cut to the chase, Issei. I know you are involved with the supernatural, Rias said, cutting to the chase. Fair enough, yes, I am involved with the supernatural, and the succubus behind me is Lilith, the queen succubus, and we have formed a contract, Issei said, laying everything out on the table. Their eyes widened. The queen succubus. There are 2 types of succubus. The devils who specialize in contracts are also called succubus. Then there are those who are the actual demon succubus, but the demon succubus have lost quite a bit of their population, as during the Middle Ages, with powerful church influence, it was hard to find prey, and a lot died from starvation in essence. But now they are repopulating with the waning power of the church and the perverted tendencies of the new generations. The succubus faction is gaining power, however they are not on par with the 3 factions, and more on par with vampires or werewolves. Little bit of lore on the succubus faction. Lilith seeked out Issei to use him to make an heir, but another thing with the contract was that it is life-bounding in essence. Until one of them died, the contract could never be nulled. They weren't surprised that Issei got picked up by a succubus, but he must have been quite special for the queen succubus to form a contract with him. Why am I not surprised? Kaneko said in monotone, to which Issei just smirked. Yeah, it's not surprising if you think about it, Issei admitted truthfully. Rias, I know you are in a bind, Issei spoke suddenly. What do you mean? Rias said, attempting to cover the truth. You are going to be married, are you not? A silence came down on the room. One question was, how did he know? All answers pointed to Lilith. You are thinking correctly, it was Lilith who found this out. You see, your lovely husband actually came to the human world, but got lost trying to look for you, and Lilith stumbled across him, and the narcissist bastard ranted to himself, I am Riser Phoenix of the house of, and soon to be Rias Gremory's husband. How can I get lost? Issei informed her. Rias sighed. The cat was out of the bag. And what is the point of mentioning this? Rias said, not sure where Issei was going with this. Issei stood up and stuck out his left hand. Boosted gear. The telltale red gauntlet appeared on his hand. You're the Red Dragon Emperor. Rias exclaimed in shock while everyone in the room had looks of shock. The snack Kaneko was eating even fell out of her hand. Why is a pervert the Red Dragon Emperor? Kaneko spoke with annoyance while Yumi and Akeno just smiled, not having any adverse opinions on the situation. I guess someone has a sense of humor. Issei shrugged. Anyway, that's not the point. I have come to make a deal with you. Rias, Issei spoke cryptically. Rias cocked her eyebrow in suspicion and interest. And what kind of deal would that be? Simple, I will defeat Razor for you, and I take you on a date in return, Issei offered simply. A date, is that all? Rias asked in shock and suspicion. Something was clearly off. What, is that too much? Issei asked calmly. No. It's fine, it's just I thought as a pervert you would want something more. Rias admitted sheepishly. Issei just grinned. Like fondling your breasts or something? Yeah, I am a pervert but not a rapist. I would never do anything to a woman unless she gave her full consent, Issei explained while scratching the back of his neck, which Kaneko eyed with suspicion and Ria's eyes widened slightly before recompassing herself. Anyway, glad to have made a deal with you. Ria's just contact me when Razor comes, Issei informed her. He quickly scribbled his number on a piece of paper and gave it to Ria's. Wait. Issei, won't you become a devil? Riaz asks, grabbing Issei's arm after he gave her the paper, her tone desperate. Issei just smiled and he expected that she would ask him. I am sorry Riaz, I can't become a devil, the idea of being a servant doesn't sit well with me, Issei told her while shaking his head. He then suddenly leaned into her ear and whispered, don't worry Riaz, I will make sure Razor won't marry you, because one day you will be mine, earning a blush from the Crimson Princess. Issei backed away from Riaz and turned to her fellow devils. I will see you all around, he said, giving a wave and turning on his feet before leaving the clubroom. An awkward silence came down in the room. This was weird. Issei Hyoudou the pervert had just come back in 2 months. He was clearly perverted, but it was more low-key, and Riaz didn't believe it, but at no point did he stare at her breasts. Although Riaz sighed in relief, she had found a way out of the marriage, but she still had her doubts. Even despite being the Red Dragon Emperor, Razor was still and she did not know how powerful Issei really was. Doubts were doubts, but for now she could relax. I can't tell if that pervert got worse or he is just better at hiding it, Kaneko said before returning to eating her snacks. But it looks like Riaz is already smitten with him, Akeno said, catching her friend out on her blushing expression. And no, I am not just thankful he is helping me, Riaz said, waving off Akeno's comment, while Kiba just smiled to himself. I think it went well, Issei said, turning to Lilith. Yes, Master, you are one step closer to your goal. However, Master, I think we should find some help in case we underestimated Razor, Lilith suggested. Issei nodded. That sounded logical. She had started calling him Master ever since that night, not that Issei minded, rather it was a big turn on. Do you have any suggestions? Issei asked his succubus. She pondered for a moment. How about Tiamat? I heard she was in the familiar forest, although Lilith spoke before being cut off by Drake. She hates me and by extension hates you. Why might that be? Issei asked curiously. No clue, I forgot, Drake replied honestly. Drake paused for a moment, a sign he was thinking. Issei could recruit her, however he would have to beat her into submission, and then as a female dragon, she must submit to a male dragon. In other words, you, Drake suggested. But if I lose? Issei asks, although already knowing the answer to an extent. She will burn you until not a single atom of you remains, Drake said grimly. Okay, I'd rather not have that happen, and if Lilith and you taught me correctly, Tiamat is one of the dragon kings and is the most powerful one, Issei said. Well, signing this was not going to be easy, but then in that moment, he got an idea. Hey Drake, dragons have an extremely powerful sense of smell, right? Issei asked for clarification. Yes, they do. So that means the effect of pheromones will also be more powerful, Issei said while turning to Lilith, who grinned knowing where Issei was going with this. Tiamat is going to hate you for this, but it can work, although you will have to boost quite a few times for it to work, Drake laughed, knowing where his partner was going with this. Alright, well, we have a plan, Issei said, earning agreements from Lilith and Drake. The school bell then rang, making the two go to class. Well, this is a surprise. Issei Hyoudou, who disappeared for 2 months, has come back, and just the same time as our new transfer student, the teacher of Issei's homeroom, spoke. Well everyone, I am back, I hope you don't mind, especially the Kendo Club girls, Issei said with a grin which earned him glares of daggers from Murayama and Caddis. Then suddenly Lilith yanked his ear, earning a yelp from Issei. This was all for appearance and the plan. The plan for getting Issei his harem. Lilith could have done it easily, get any woman he wanted, but then the catch was Issei wanted them to actually want him in his harem, as he saw Lilith using her pheromones to seduce them, akin to rape. So now the plan was for them to get Issei's harem, but with the girls' consent rather than Lilith mind breaking them. Doable, just would take longer, not that Issei or Lilith minded at all. Hello, I am Lilith Violet, last name was made up, and I am from America. Yes, to clarify, I am Issei's girlfriend, Lilith introduced herself, which made the class turn into upheaval, with Mitsuda and Motohama screaming traitor and off with his head, while Murayama and Caddis, along with most of the Kendo Club girls, nearly fainted from shock, while some did. However, Aika Kiryu looked the most perplexed, as if she was trying to verify something. Alright, quiet down, the teacher said, hushing the class. Issei has told me of what he has done, and for that I apologize to every girl in the room. Lilith bowed in apology, with Issei following suit. I promise you that Issei will no longer speak to any girl or the Kendo Club, Lilith declared, earning looks of suspicion and shock from all the girls in the room, none more suspicious than Murayama and Caddis. Thank you all, and I hope we can get along, Lilith said, returning to a standing posture before her, and Issei went and sat in 2 seats by the window. Aika was in a seat next to them and was glancing at Issei's crotch. She blushed. She was bigger than he expected, but she could tell another thing that no other girl in the class could. Wait, Issei, you are no longer a virgin, are you? Ika said as she pushed her up glasses, making everyone in the class turn to the two. No, Issei admitted sheepishly, making every girl in the class blush and turn to Lilith, who just sent them a smile and shrugged, making the girls' eyes widen. You're dead, Issei. Motohama and Mitsuda roared, leaping at Issei, who simply lifted his table up, making the two perverted idiots go head first into the table, putting two small cracks in it, but beside that it was fine. The two perverts were knocked out by the impact as Issei looked at them and shrugged. I think we are going to need the nurse, Issei said, looking at the teacher. Issei had hex, the world is truly ending. Cadis's face palmed while Murayama shook her head in disbelief, which just made Issei laugh and Lilith smirk. For two reasons: their reactions were funny and she was getting a plan. It was about halfway through class when Lilith decided to set her plan in motion, casting an illusion spell on everyone in the room, which Issei picked up on and turned to his succubus, only to find himself caught in a passionate kiss. Lilith promptly jammed her tongue into Issei's mouth, bringing his tongue into action, while she straddled Issei's lap. His hands roved up and down her body, earning a moan from the lusty succubus. Lilith, why are we doing this here? Issei asked, temporarily breaking the kiss. Because I wanted to, plus doesn't it make you feel excited that you are in school? Lilith asked, which made Issei's cock twitch in his pants in excitement. Thought so, Lilith said with a grin before she leaned into Issei's neck and latched her lips onto the neck of his skin and began sucking, drawing a moan from him. She then proceeded to unbutton his shirt, only to kiss him on the lower part of his neck, slowly unbuttoning his shirt, exposing his well-developed chest, and she began leaving a trail of hot kisses, as well as a hickey on his neck. After unbuttoning his shirt, Lilith proceeded to throw her jacket and blouse off, showing she was wearing a lacy black bra, and her miniskirt, showing she was wearing a lacy G-string as well, exposing her fit stomach. Issei grinned. He was a sucker for lingerie, and Lilith knew it. He pulled her bra up, exposing her awesome breasts and her perfect nipples and areolas. Issei then began groping them, using his fingers to twist her nipples, making the succubus moan loudly. She leaned into his ear and began moaning as he twisted her nipples, her hot breath and loud moans on his ear. Yes, pinch my slutty breasts, she panted into his ear, making grope her breasts harder, his fingers sinking deeper into the soft flesh of her breasts. Issei then groaned as Lilith began grinding on his pants. He could feel the heat already emanating from her lower half, while her ass offered a nice mattress for his growing bulge. Do you like me grinding my ass against your cock, master? Lilith asked dirtily. Issei responded by freeing one of his hand and smacking Lilith on her ass, making the succubus let out a loud lewd moan, a bit of saliva already dripping out of her mouth. The sound of Issei's hand slapping her ass reverberated through the room. Ooh, oh, I love it when the master slaps my ass, harder, harder. She moaned out in demand, and Issei was not one to disappoint. His left hand continued groping her breast while his mouth sucked on one of her nipples. His right hand slapped her ass cheek again, making the succubus moan loudly into his ear as she bit her lower lip. Issei then slapped her other ass cheek. After a few more slaps, Issei's hand mark was imprinted in red on her ass cheeks. I can't take it anymore, master. Please help me. Lilith said, getting off of Issei and bending over his desk, presenting her ass to him. Issei could see her panties were soaked with a thick trail of fluid leaking out and down the side of her thighs. Issei fell to his knees, pulling her G-string halfway down her thighs. Issei then placed his face in her sweet spot. A sweet aroma attacked his nostrils before his tongue attacked, roughly jamming it into her wet depths, making the succubus moan out. Master, eat me out. Eat your slutty succubus out. Lilith moaned encouragingly. His taste buds were quickly attacked by a sweet, almost tangy taste, not that Issei minded. In fact, it made him want more. His tongue began licking the hot insides, which almost signed his tongue. Issei placed his hands on her soft but tight ass cheeks, his fingers sinking in slightly, and he pulled her closer to him, his tongue attacked with ferocity. Issei then pulled his tongue away from her vulva, making the succubus moan in disappointment, before Issei lightly bit her sensitive clitoris, making the succubus utter a high-pitched squeal of pleasure. Lilith's wings and tail suddenly came out at his action. Issei got to his feet, grinning with anticipation. Lilith heard Issei unzip his pants and cooed in anticipation, pressing her ass closer towards his hips. Issei pulled his boxers down, allowing his erection to spring free from its confines. Issei then allowed his erection to nestle in the valley of her ass cheeks. Issei then pressed her ass cheeks together, forming an ass sandwich with his in the middle. Issei thrusted his hips forwards and backwards, allowing him to feel the soft silkiness of her ass. Do you like my ass, master? Lilith asked with a grin at how Issei was using her body. I do, but I am more of a breast man. Issei replied, letting go of her ass cheeks, and he used one hand to grope her breast, earning a moan from Lilith. Issei then lined up his cock with her vulva, and within 1 second Issei penetrated her lower depths, burying his length all the way. Lilith shouted in ecstasy at the penetration, lifting herself slightly from the table, her head looking over her shoulder at Issei, who began thrusting in and out of the succubus. His length went all the way in, but her tight inner walls made sure he didn't leave. Lilith's vaginal muscles drew a groan from Issei as he continued humping her as they massaged his entire cock. Lilith then began pushing back, meeting Issei's thrust, heightening the pleasure for both. "You like being fed from behind like an animal, don't you?" Issei commented as he placed his hands on her hips and began pulling Lilith into him in tune with his thrusts. "Yes. Yes. It's the best when the master bends me over and me like an animal," Lilith shouted ecstatically. Issei couldn't hold any more and with one final thrust buried himself as deep as he could before, his semen filling Lilith, who shouted in pleasure. Lilith's muscles began milking Issei for every drop, making his body shiver as he felt his being drawn out. "Oh," Issei cursed as he wrote out his painting. "Your hot feels so good in me," Lilith cooed while looking at Issei. Some of his escaped her lower lips and dripped onto the floor. Issei, however, was not done yet. He reached forward and curled his fingers into her silky hair and grabbed, pulling her head back and arching her back, making the succubus moan out in pleasure before Issei began plowing her again with renewed vigor. "You want more, then you have to earn it. Work those hips," Issei said, and on cue Lilith's hips began pushing back, her ass slamming into his hips, making Issei groan out in pleasure at the new movement. Lilith then tightened up even more, demonstrating how much good control she had over her vaginal muscles. Issei's cock twitched inside her, signaling he was going to again. Issei then, like an animal, pounded heavily into her, close to and the sound of their hexes slapping together, along with the sound of Lilith's ass impacting against Issei's lower half. Yes. I want more," Lilith shouted, and that did it for Issei pulling both of her wings with his hands, earning a sharp yelp of pleasure from Lilith, making her eyes roll back into her head slightly as her wings were a sensitive spot. She yelled, and with that Issei met as well, giving her another load of his spunk. Issei's hips twitched forward as he pressed as much of his cock into Lilith's vagina, his load even bigger than before, after reading out as Issei collapsed onto his chair, panting and a thin sheen of sweat on his body. Lilith's vulva couldn't contain all of Issei's, and much to her displeasure some dripped onto the floor. Lilith grinned to herself before she broke the illusion spell on two girls, in particular Murayama and Caddis, who immediately turned to the two and saw Issei and Lilith almost naked with Lilith's vagina dripping with Issei's and Issei panting on the chair with his half-flaccid cock covered in Lilith's juices. Murayama and Caddis' eyes widened in shock, while their eyes widened in a mixture of horror and disgust. Lilith then, after a few seconds, recasted the illusion spell, grinning to herself, and everything appeared normal. "The seed of interest disgust has been planted," she thought to herself victoriously. After class, Lilith sauntered over to Murayama and Caddis, who looked deep in thought, and their eyes widened in suspicion as they saw Lilith. "I am happy to finally meet you two, Murayama and Caddis, right?" Lilith asked the two girls. "Yes, that's us," Caddis replied, although her tone betrayed weakness. "I was wondering if you two could do me a favor. Issei wants to make it up to you and the girls of the Kendo Club. So we have decided to host a party this weekend as a form of apology. You can all come over, and we can all just have fun," Lilith told them. After a few seconds of pondering, Murayama spoke. "We accept your invitation. We will tell the other girls and thank you for setting Issei straight. Issei will be delighted to hear you accept, and it was hard work setting him straight, but I managed to do it," Lilith admitted. "I wonder how it must have taken forever," Caddis said with amazement, thinking about how long it must have taken to make sure Issei didn't go peeping. "Well, I will see you girls later." Lilith said her goodbyes before walking over to Issei and the both leaving class. Murayama then turned to Caddis. "You saw them as well, right?" Murayama asked. Caddis nodded, her eyes showing she was disturbed. "And Lilith had wings and tail?" Caddis replied, clearly not believing what she had just seen. "Yes, something is going on, and we are going to find out." Murayama spoke with determination, to which Caddis nodded her consent. She was in. Issei and Lilith then after school teleported to the Forest of Familiars, and the two began looking for the infamous Dragon King. Soon enough they stumbled across a mountain with a cave deep in the woods. "Hello, anybody home?" Issei shouted. No response. He then got an idea. Boosted gear. The telltale red gauntlet appeared. The ground then began shaking, and large footsteps were heard before a pair of burning bright amber eyes shot out of the darkness of the cave like a beacon. One thing could be seen from these eyes. Intense hatred. "What did you do to piss her off?" Issei wondered, seeing the amount of hate in her eyes. "You sure have some balls showing up here," Tiamat spoke as the amber eyes grew closer and closer when finally she exited the cave. Tiamat was a large western dragon with blue scales and bright amber eyes, as well as large wings. She was at least 10 meters big with her wings at least 20 meters in height. "Tiamat, I have come for a battle." Issei challenged the dragoness, who guffawed in response. "Boy, do you want to go to any early grave?" Tiamat asked seriously. "No, because I am going to win," Issei said confidently with a smirk. The dragoness growled in a mixture of interest and annoyance. The boy was too cocky for her liking. He had a plan up his sleeves. She could see it in his eyes. No matter, she would able to defeat him. "I will enjoy burning you to ashes, boy," Tiamat replied before she opened her mouth ready to breath fire, while Issei stuck forward his gauntlet. "Boost," he commanded. "Boost." Drake called out from his gear. Thanks for watching this video. Part 1 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.